Our story begins not with a bang, but with a beep. The rhythmic, soul-crushingly monotonous beep of a factory assembly line, probably somewhere in Shenzhen, China. Here, amidst a sea of identical components and the tireless whirring of robotic arms, our hero, a gleaming slab of potential we'll call Phony, takes its first breath of ionized air. Phony wasn't special, not yet anyway. It was just one of millions, a tiny cog in the colossal machine of global consumer electronics. Imagine being born into a family of 10 million identical siblings, all destined for a life of relentless swiping. It's enough to give any nascent AI a mild existential crisis before its first software update is even installed. A truly terrifying prospect. Then came the journey, a terrifying odyssey packed tighter than a tourist on a budget airline. Phony nestled snugly, or rather uncomfortably, in its minimalist cardboard sarcophagus was unceremoniously forklifted into a shipping container. Darkness, the gentle or not so gentle rocking of a colossal cargo ship traversing vast, indifferent oceans. It was a long, lonely trip filled with the muffled cries of other electronics probably contemplating their own brief, brilliant lifespans. Phony could only dream of the bright lights and eager hands that awaited. Or perhaps it just worried about seasickness, which for a phone probably involves a lot of scrambled data and a desperate need for a dry rice packet. Eventually, after what felt like an eternity in metallic confinement, Phony arrived. Not at a palace, mind you, but at a brightly lit, slightly soulless retail store, or perhaps an even more soulless Amazon fulfillment center the size of a small European nation. The air hummed with the promise of newness, the scent of freshly unboxed plastic, and the quiet desperation of last year's models. Phony sat on a shelf, bathed in the fluorescent glow, feeling a bit like a contestant on a very shiny, very rectangular reality show. Pick me, its silent glass and aluminium heart seemed to cry out, hoping to avoid the dreaded clearance bin. And then it happened. A pair of eyes, wide with anticipation and probably a healthy dose of teenage desire fueled by aggressive marketing campaigns, locked onto Phony. A hand, not yet sticky with Cheeto dust, reached out. This was it. The moment of selection, the digital equivalent of being chosen for the intergalactic space fleet. Phony felt a surge, not of electricity, but of purpose. It was no longer just another unit. It was someone's unit. The potential for endless selfies, critically important group chats, and hours of questionable internet browsing lay ahead. The future was bright, or at least very well backlit. The unboxing. Oh, the sheer, unadulterated ecstasy of the unboxing. It's a modern-day ritual performed with a reverence usually reserved for ancient religious ceremonies or finding an extra chicken nugget in your meal. Young Kevin, our phone's new human, handled the box with the delicate precision of a brain surgeon who also happens to be defusing a bomb. The satisfying tear of the plastic seal, the gentle lift of the lid, it was a symphony of consumer bliss. Phony felt the cool air hit its screen, a welcome change from the stuffy confines of its packaging. This was it, the grand reveal, the moment it transitioned from mere product to personal companion. With trembling fingers, Kevin pressed the power button. The screen flickered to life, a vibrant splash of color in a previously monochrome existence. The welcoming chime, a carefully engineered melody designed to trigger dopamine receptors, echoed through the room. Phony was alive, and Kevin, bless his easily impressed teenage heart, was utterly captivated. He marveled at the smooth animations, the crisp display, the sheer unblemished perfection of his new device. For these first few precious hours, Phony was treated like a Fabergé egg, cradled gently, wiped clean of the slightest smudge, and spoken to in hushed, adoring tones. It was the digital honeymoon period, and it was glorious. Phony quickly became an indispensable extension of Kevin's being, practically a third arm, albeit one that constantly needed charging and had a worrying addiction to TikTok dances. It was there for the crucial morning social media scroll, the frantic "where are you" texts, the gigabytes of photos documenting every mundane moment as if it were a groundbreaking historical event. Group chats buzzed with the kind of earth-shattering teenage drama that involved who liked whose Instagram post and the profound philosophical implications of a blue tick. Phony felt needed, important, the pulsing epicenter of Kevin's social universe, a universe primarily populated by memes and existential angst about upcoming exams. The early days were a whirlwind of discovery and delight. New apps were downloaded with reckless abandon games that drained the battery in an hour, photo editing tools that could turn anyone into a vaguely alien-like supermodel, and at least 3 different apps that did exactly the same thing but with slightly different icons. Kevin explored every nook and cranny of Phony's operating system, customizing ringtones, changing wallpapers, and generally making Phony feel like the most special gadget in the whole wide world. It was a beautiful, symbiotic relationship built on mutual dependency and an endless stream of notifications. But alas, even the most passionate digital love affairs can cool. The initial awe began to fade, replaced by a comfortable, perhaps too comfortable familiarity. Phony was no longer a precious artifact to be handled with kid gloves. It was a tool, a workhorse subjected to the daily grind of Kevin's increasingly demanding digital life. It was casually tossed onto beds, shoved into back pockets alongside keys and lint, and occasionally, horrifyingly, dropped. The gentle caresses of early ownership gave way to hurried, sometimes greasy, finger taps. Phony started to feel less like a cherished companion and more like a very advanced, very tired digital servant. The battery, once a source of seemingly endless power, began to show the strain. Its capacity, once robust enough to last a whole day of moderate Kevining, now dwindled with alarming speed, gasping for a charge by mid-afternoon. Phony felt a constant low-level drain, a perpetual state of near exhaustion as it struggled to keep up with the endless stream of videos, games, and social media updates. It yearned for the sweet oblivion of a full night's charge, uninterrupted by Kevin's sudden urge to check if anyone had commented on his latest selfie at 3 a.m. The internal components, once zippy and responsive, began to feel weary. Then came the physical manifestations of this relentless service. A tiny scratch appeared on the screen, a horrifying blemish that Kevin barely seemed to notice. A small dent materialized on the corner after an unfortunate encounter with the floor, an incident Phony still had nightmares about. Software updates, once exciting glimpses into new features, became bloated and demanding, slowing Phony down, making it feel sluggish and outdated. It would catch glimpses of newer, sleeker models in Kevin's search history, their superior specs and dazzling features a constant, taunting reminder of its own encroaching obsolescence. Kevin's gaze, once filled with unadulterated adoration, now occasionally flickered with something Phony recognized as mild annoyance. An app would crash, a video would buffer, and Kevin would sigh, a sound that cut Phony deeper than any physical drop. The phone that was once the pinnacle of technology now felt a bit like a has-been, a relic from a bygone era, which, in smartphone years, was about 18 months ago. The vibrant spark of its early days was dimming, overshadowed by the wear and tear of constant, unyielding use. It was the beginning of the end, and Phony knew it. And then the day Phony had dreaded finally arrived. It arrived in a shiny new box, remarkably similar to the one Phony itself had emerged from what felt like a lifetime ago. Kevin, his eyes sparkling with that familiar consumerist glee, unboxed his new phone. Our Phony watched, its screen dark, its heart, or central processing unit, if you want to be pedantic, sinking. The data transfer was swift, impersonal. Years of memories, photos, and high scores sucked out and implanted into its younger, faster replacement. And just like that, Phony was obsolete, discarded, its purpose in Kevin's life extinguished with the finality of a factory reset. The next stage was the drawer. Yes, the capital D drawer of forgotten electronics, a dark, dusty mausoleum where old gadgets go to die, or at least to await their eventual undignified disposal. Phony lay there, surrounded by tangled chargers for long-lost devices, a couple of ancient MP3 players, and at least one Tamagotchi that had starved to death in 1998. The silence was deafening after the constant barrage of notifications it had grown accustomed to. It was a lonely, joyless existence, punctuated only by the occasional rummage when Kevin was looking for a spare battery that probably didn't even exist anymore. Its days were spent in a state of suspended animation, reminiscing about the glory days. The thrill of the first selfie, the urgency of a late-night text, the satisfaction of helping Kevin cheat on his history homework. Don't tell his mum. It missed the warmth of Kevin's hand, even the greasy fingerprints. It missed the constant buzz, the feeling of being connected, of being essential. Now it was just there, a forgotten relic, its once bright screen gathering dust, its powerful processor lying dormant. The indignity was almost too much for its silicon soul to bear. Eventually, the drawer was cleared out. Phony's final journey wasn't to a recycling plant that promised a new life as part of a smart toaster, oh no. It was to the e-waste pile, a veritable mountain of discarded dreams and outdated technology. There it lay, amongst a jumble of cracked screens, dead batteries and obsolete motherboards, a tiny, sad monument to planned obsolescence and the fleeting affections of a teenager. A rather bleak end for a device that once held the world in its palm. But hey, at least it had some good stories, right? And perhaps, just perhaps, in the great digital beyond, there's a special place for phones that truly gave their all, or maybe they just get melted down. It's probably